Celebrimbor is having a grand time while a region is enveloped in darkness and ash, lighted only by fire and punctuated by screaming. He triumphantly forges the 9 rings for mortal men, seemingly armed with enough mithril, despite the fact that it was merely Sauron's blood converted into something resembling mithril and without any destruction. Occasionally, he senses a tiny something is wrong. One of the diamonds on Fëanor's hammer is missing, and his face appears sooty and even scraped when he looks in the mirror. But when Sauron enters, everything goes back to normal. Celebrimbor brings out a depressing detail during the conversation. He has been forging the rings for weeks, so for all that time, the devastation and blood outside his home has been hidden by this, quite impressive, facade. Outside, the sun is hidden by a thick cloud of smoke caused by Adar's strikes. As the elves prepare to fight back, Sauron gathers the armies of the city and allows an assault on their position. Celebrimbor has lost his mind. He says, "We are alone," to Myrdania, who takes his hand gently. Sauron promises her that he will make sure she gets her just recompense when the time comes, but he is preoccupied with the fact that Adar's siege engines are shutting down. As this is going on, the orcs shift their focus from the city to a cliffside downstream, and their cunning plan becomes apparent. They intend to dam the river to make it easier for a ground attack, which is successful. The identical mouse that darted past Celebrimbor earlier reappears in the forge. Oddly enough, it acts exactly the same way, almost as if Sauron's surrounds are playing continuously instead of him. King Durin is informed by Narvi about a region, who has little regard for the elves and is more focused on the spoils of battle. "I need the mine returned right away. We lose unimaginable wealth every hour we wait." He informs Narvi we have to accept it, thinking he can demand an ungodly price to provide the elves mithril. The king's men soon arrive with their pickaxes in hand, and Prince Durin and Disa are waiting for them down in the pit. Thankfully, Narvi lets Durin know that they oppose the monarch and informs him that an elf who has been exiled from all dwarven territories is waiting for him outside. Yes, that's correct. Durin and Elrond are finally shown together on film, but they don't have time to make up for it. With Durin poised to depose his father, Elrond requires the dwarves. He says to him, "I know I asked too much of you, but I need your axe, my friend. I need it now." Elven archers shoot as many Uruks as they can from the city's walls as fighting breaks out at a region as the Uruks rush towards it. Myrdania notices additional orcs approaching them with a Ravager, which is essentially a battering ram. Celebrimbor, meantime, observes the patterns in his environment, such as the small mouse that is always moving and the fact that his candles haven't burned down to the last bit. Captivating, Sauron remarks mockingly, although Celebrimbor is aware that he is lost in a false illusion and a time warp. Celebrimbor hits in with his hammer, shattering a window in the process. Abruptly, the truth spills out all around him. The mithril he's been using suddenly looks like black gloop. Portions of the forge's ceiling have fallen and he's covered in dirt. He staggers outdoors, only to have a boulder slam him in the side, telling her that Sauron had turned him into a prisoner of the mind and had him fabricate the 9 rings. He flees to find Myrdania. Not only does she not trust him, but she also appears afraid. He gives the order for a region's soldiers to capture him, but they refuse since they, understandably, think Celebrimbor is to blame for the mayhem in the area. When Sauron holds up his hand, his scar is red despite his orders for them to tear him open so they may witness his black blood. Although Myrdania offers to let him back inside, Sauron pulls off a particularly nefarious ruse. While Celebrimbor is still under his sway, he forces her to be thrown off the edge of the city wall. As she hits the muddy ground, an orc stabs her in the face with an axe. Whoa. From a distance, Sauron hears Elrond's army advancing rapidly on Adar and the orcs. "Death to our enemies," yells Elrond. But when one of the orcs spots Galadriel in a cage with a spear to her throat, they are rendered motionless. Elrond gives the order to stop his army. Elrond informs Adar that he does not possess Galadriel's ring when he requests to see it. Adar threatens to chop out Galadriel's tongue if she continues talking, while Galadriel believes he ought to have continued charging. Adar makes a fair offer. Assist him in eliminating Sauron and Galadriel will survive. He threatens, "You must know that you can't defeat me in battle and you will fall." Although Adar's orcs appear a little anxious about the possibility of losing if the two sides engaged in combat. Then, in an odd moment, which you will understand if you know what occurs in the books, Elrond kisses Galadriel. Galadriel appears rather surprised, but it appears that he was merely using it as a covert method to give her the key to her handcuffs. It is up to us to decide whether the great tale of our age will end in tragedy or triumph. Durin tells the dwarves in Khazad-dûm. He discloses that Sauron has made a comeback attempt to create rings that will enslave them, as well as all other people in Middle-earth. Sauron seeks to feed their avarice and turn their hearts to ash and sweep us from the field, because the elves cannot survive without them. Durin gives the order for the dwarves to march toward a region because they are furious. In the meantime, Elrond battles orcs in the forest who slice the neck of his horse to death. After getting his retribution, Elrond chains the orc to a catapult and stabs him in the chest. At this moment, the Ravager is gradually tearing down the wall as orcs begin to climb inside a region and engage in combat with the archers. Galadriel stealthily makes her way out of the camp as Adar is burning the orc corpses, hiding behind a cloak. He responds, in flames they return to darkness. Arondir saves her with a few arrows fired from above just before she is about to be captured. Galadriel explains to him that there aren't many elven heroes about this evening despite his fervent desire to murder Adar. Ashamed to lose another one, later on there will be the real battle with Adar. King Durin executes the dwarves in Khazad-dûm for disobeying his commands. Narvi begs him to send in the soldiers because if the monarch keeps mining, everyone might perish. Celebrimbor is told not to be terrified by Sauron as he completes the rings. Every hardship we endure will be worthwhile. You have to understand that treating you the way that Morgoth treated me hurts, he continues. Outside of a region, as blood pours across the marshes, Celebrimbor tries and fails to destroy the rings. After placing them all in a bag and chopping off his thumb to free his hand from the shackle, he runs away. Galadriel stops his warriors from seizing him on order of Annatar, lord of a region. Celebrimbor reveals that he was held as a slave, and he was to blame. A portion of me saw, a portion of me knew. However, I desired what he presented. He explains, I blinded myself to what he was, so that's what happened to me as well. Galadriel agrees. Celebrimbor tells Galadriel that she must be the one to take the rings, but Galadriel tells him to use the old dwarven tunnel to escape. He informs her, my place is here. I built this city. Light triumphs over darkness, not strength. Even though armies may rise and hearts may break, light always triumphs over strength. Galadriel accepts the jewelry. Elrond gives Ryan the mission of using one of her arrows to set off an explosion in the meanwhile. Orc archers knock her to the ground, but she gets back up and draws her bow, effectively igniting the surrounding region. As Ryan is dying, Elrond and his soldiers charge in, slaughtering a great number of orcs, but Adar has a fallback in the form of Damrod the Hill Troll. Finding the 9 rings, Sauron charges into combat. He is surrounded by Celebrimbor's men, but Sauron shows that he is in control of the entire region, so he forces them to murder each other and themselves. He says, you're going to give me the 9. To slay Damrod before he can tear down the wall, Arondir, Elrond, and Gil-galad band together. As the sun rises, the last orcs engage in combat. However, the dwarves never show up. Adar orders, kill them all, and although Gil-galad manages to hold his own with the use of his spear, many people are lost. Notably, Arondir eventually engages Adar in combat. He shoves him to the ground and stabs him in the stomach, although he appears to be okay. Adar locates Elrond and steals the ring as the orcs destroy a region's wall. Are you missing your Rúmul? Never wage war out of rage, he declares, tossing him to the ground.